The following content of this show may contain strong language may not be suitable for younger audience. You have been warned.
Hello everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Zap Chat. I'm your host, Zach Probst. Now then, today is going to be I would say a celebration, like a tribute kind of way, because we're going to be discussing all about anime, of how I grew up become an anime fan. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have done a recording a while back on my earlier podcast episodes. And I believe I mentioned this a while back, but since this is mainly focusing about anime, I might as well tell you again of my experience of my childhood. And I just been kind of hearing a lot of news lately that there's been a lot of, let's see here. I don't have the article with me about it because I don't want to go in too deep. But basically, somewhere in Australia are banning a number of anime shows and manga books. For that kind of attitude, I just kind of feeling like, you know what? I'm going to fight back and tell them that anime has influenced my childhood. And so this is me saying that, oh yeah? Well, let me tell you how much anime has been a huge impact in my childhood. So here's my story. Now, before I get into that, I want to discuss about a famous voice actor that I am a huge fan of, and how much that he means a lot to me to get started on becoming a possible voice actor. May not be a big popular voice actor, I'm not sure of that, but at least it's somehow to get me started, and I'm very new at it, and I'm a bit slow on how figuring out what to do. So now before I move on with this, I want to clarify with you guys by the time you listen to this, because I wanted to share with others and many of you guys. So I want to clarify here. I am not self-promoting and or sponsoring in any way of this video. This is for entertainment purpose only to a famous actor that I'm a huge fan of. So believing when I'm sharing this to you guys, you have my word, I am not promoting in any way possible, because this is me becoming a big anime fan who is really passionate about it. And I'm recording this past 1:30 a.m. in the morning because I had to take lots of notes and lots of ideas to share this with you guys. So for that being said, you have my word, I am not self-promoting in any way. So let us begin our first topic. The actor I'm going to be discussing a little bit is Steve Blum. Now, for those of you who don't know Steve Blum, he is hugely known for playing the role of Spike Spiegel on Cowboy Bebop. He played Zeb from Star Wars Rebels. He played Mulgan, I hope I pronounced that right, Mulgan, something like that, for Samurai Champloo. He played Roger Smith in The Big O. And he did Wolverine in the X-Men type voice. I don't know if I have that or not. His voice is always going like my name is Wolverine. I'm the best there is at what I do. And what I do best isn't really nice. Just that really low voice. So he's another well-known. I would say the show that he did was Wolverine and the X-Men. And when I saw that show, it was one of my favorite Marvel cartoon tones of the show. It's like it feels like a little similar to the Batman animated series. Just has that children and adults for everyone to enjoy. So for Wolverine and X-Men is exactly the same thing, and I love that show so much. And I've always got a kick out of Steve Blum's voice of doing Wolverine, because that Wolverine, just that low voice attitude, I love that. So anyways, and he's also done multiple Marvel productions as well for other Marvel characters, as well for not just Wolverine but other characters. In the video game, he voiced Professor Galvrick. I hope I pronounced that right. Professor Galvregs from Metal Gear Solid. And he did, my favorite video game, Grayson Hunt, the game called Bulletstorm. That game is so much fun. I think the reason I liked it so much is because the writer of this game, I should have wrote it down, but I didn't have a chance. He's the same guy that was involved in writing Marvel Comics of The Punisher. So in case if you're curious, that's him developing the story of Bulletstorm, coming up with some really crazy catchphrases in the game, which is ridiculous. I'm not going to say the quotes of it because it's a little too dirty to share. Let's see here. He's also hugely known from doing a voice announcer plays Tom from Toonami, the robotic host on Cartoon Network's Toonami. Now, a while back, it started from in the year 2000. Then, sadly, the show got called off quits in 2008. That was kind of a rough year for everybody. 2007, 2008, that was when a lot of the businesses were going out and the stock marketing was plummeting and many banks were going out of business and many people lost their homes and jobs. It was a pretty bad time for everybody. However, it did get revived on May 26, 2012. They brought the show back, and it was supposed to be like an April Fool's joke, but then it brought up a lot of nostalgic fans out there that wants to bring back Toonami and bring in the new generation kids to enjoy Toonami as well, which I'm very applaud them. That's me applauding. So thank you for that. Oh yeah, and a while back he even did a voice announcer for a 7-Eleven commercial, and what he says is 7-Eleven, oh thank heaven, and that was the catchphrase. And as time goes by, he did many more animations, like he does a voice of Starscream from Transformers Prime. Just that kind of pitch voice. I don't think I did it as good as Steve, but that was my approach. Let's see. Other shows I'm not familiar of. He did a character Vilgax from Ben 10. I barely watched Ben 10. I never really grew up watching that. But he did Count Vertigo from the Green Arrow miniseries, or not miniseries, a Green Arrow animated short film. And in 2012, he was also awarded for Guinness World Record for the most prolific video game voice actor, and that was impressive. The reason I want to tell you about Steve Blum is because I wanted to tell you how much anime really influenced me in my childhood, and so trying to get as much information as possible about Steve Blum. The best I can do to finish off is Steve Blum also has a website called Bloomvlock Studios, which focuses to help inspiring teenagers or people like me in my age, like in my mid-20s, that wants to try out new things to become a possible voice actor. Not self-promoting or sponsoring. Again, I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to bring word out of it. But yeah, just feel free to check out the website and see what you guys think. Now, I have signed up myself too, but I have trying, and I have bought a voice book, but it's mostly about Rob Paulson, how he was suffering through cancer. I just recently bought a book about him, and it really caught my attention, and I really wanted to read more about it. And so I'm still new at it, the book. I've only read the first chapter. I will continue forward to read more of that book later on, but I posted on Instagram not too long ago, just before I did this recording. So it is up right now, trying to a shout out to Rob Paulson for his incredible talents. So, I wish I had more information about Steve Blum here, but that's pretty much what he's best known for. So it's basically a shout out to Steve Blum for me saying thank you for having a chance to trying out new things of my possible career. I want to talk about a little bit about it is because I'm going through a pretty rough time in my side of the story. like everyone else, during this pandemic in the year 2020, I lost my job a few months ago working at the restaurant business. And I, I kind of knew that we were going out of business, but I didn't expect to be closing down permanently. That was an unexpected turn. Uh, Long story short, the deal just kind of suddenly pulled the plug, and it happened. Even sadder is the announcement happened to shut down the restaurant was the day on my birthday. That was in mid-March. And I was completely heartbroken, but mostly shocked. When my dad told me about it, I froze. I just felt, it looked like, if you see me like in the mirror, I looked pale. And I just could not believe what my dad said to me, that they're closing down business for good. And I've worked the restaurant business. The place is called Twilight Pizza Bistro, and it's no longer there. But I've been working there for about 7 years. Yeah, been working there for about 7 years. Was I happy? At first, absolutely. I was so happy to have my very first job in my life. And I started out as a part-time janitor. Then as time goes by, I rolled into becoming a food prep, working in the kitchen to work next to my dad. My dad works in the kitchen also, and he does incredible dessert makings. So whenever you order desserts at the restaurant, that was all my dad. That was my dad's technique of making desserts, especially the specials of cheesecakes. For example, my dad made this incredible cheesecake, which is my personal favorite, and it is a cinnamon roll cheesecake. I love cinnamon rolls, and I love cheesecake. Why not put them together? And my dad came up with an incredible idea. I told him that he should do a cinnamon roll cheesecake, and then my dad started messing around with some ingredients. And what he did is he actually put an actual cinnamon roll in the cheesecake batter, put them in the oven, and took it out. So as you slice it, you can still taste the cinnamon bun inside of the cheesecake. Oh, it's so delicious. I wish I had pictures of it, but I don't know. Maybe someday if my dad gets around making cheesecakes again, then I'll take a picture and share it with you guys. But I gotta tell you, it is my favorite cheesecake. Oh, so good. So anyways, after I lost my job, I just kind of trying to figure out what to do. And I'm most likely going to be like, well, we're not going to be finding a house anytime soon, so we're just going to have to just stick around for another year in our house rental and see what happens. The good news is we're doing okay. We are doing okay. We're just waiting on what's going to happen next as of right now, of today, which is July. So back in March, I was kind of figuring out what to do, and my dad, a while back, told me about the website that Steve Blum has. That Steve Blum has his own website to help out inspiring and becoming voice actors. So I did some looking, and this part of the story was like 2 years ago. I couldn't do it earlier because me and Dad were busy trying to find a house to search, but that's a different story. But anyways, the website, I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, this would be a good idea. However, I didn't really have the money to do it, so I didn't want to risk it. But then as time goes by, I just been saving up my money for roughly just years and years and years and years and years. And then finally, after I lost my job, I decided to risk it. And so I decided to purchase the online class of Bloomblock Studios, and I just went ahead and just started, watching many videos, doing a lot of reading and figuring out what to do, and it definitely got me going until right about in close to the end of May, the whole protest of Black Lives Matter started, of the death of George Floyd, and then things just went crazy of the news all day. And it was depressing to watch. And so because of that, I just completely stopped what I was doing on voice acting because I was so really down and can't think. I don't know what to do. And everything was just a mess. And I didn't really want to feel that, dark feeling again. And during that time, the whole month of June, it was really depressing. As time goes by, I've went ahead and I've tried to push myself to go back on voice acting and so forth. As of this point, I'm just waiting for a possible job search of this year right now. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen. But things has been a really crazy time for everybody. And even with my mom is going through in her personal life, things have been pretty bad in my family too. Like my grandfather is suffering another stroke. And it's been hurting my mom pretty bad. So things have just been, one thing after another. It was just been a really rough time. So, sorry to get all sad and moody at this point, but I just wanted to share what I'm going through right now. I am now getting back up my feet to do voice acting, but this time I wasn't quite ready to go back to the actual site. So instead, I did watch with Steve Blum talking to another voice actor. I can't remember her name, but she mentioned that would recommend reading a book about Rob Paulson, which I mentioned not too long ago that Rob Paulson was going through cancer and wrote a novel book. So I decided to purchase that book. I gave it a read, and already I'm just like, okay, this is something I should really, to get me started. And once in a while, I have been practicing every now and then. When I was watching YouTube videos, I just would watch a gamer doing voice impressions online, and someone online, like the one of those VR chats, that somebody out there does a spot-on impression of Deku from My Hero Academia, and I was completely blown away of how spot-on that voice is. I also want to mention that I'm in the closet recording this, and my room is already getting hot. I wasn't really thrilled of doing another recording because of the summer heat. It's causing my closet to warm up even faster. If this was recording during winter time, it would have been a much better recording of this. So that's what I've been doing right now. I'm slowly getting back up my feet and fighting back on that. I want to do this. I want to do voice acting. I want to do more podcasts. I want to learn to speak Japanese. I really want to do those. And I'm trying. I'm really trying. I'm just really slow at it. And my mind is like overwhelmed and just can't shut down. Now then, that's what I've been going through about my life experience right now. So speaking of life experience, I want to talk to you about the first time I became an anime fan and how much it influenced me a lot as a kid. Years ago, since I was just a toddler or a baby, my dad used to work at a video store back in the day. It was I think it was like a Blockbuster Video or a Hollywood Video, or it could be an indie video store. It might have been Blockbuster, but either way. But anyways, my dad worked at a video store. A buddy of his, video cassette tapes, VHS, got copies of a friend of his and gave him a bunch of anime titles, some anime shows and movies. Some of them I wasn't old enough to watch, but I was able to watch 2 of them when I was just a baby. The ones that my dad owns at the time, video cassettes, but these were pre-recording from a friend of his. So the titles were The Guyver, the original Guyver, Lupin the Third, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Crying Freeman, Robotech, and My Neighbor Totoro. One of the 2 is what got me started. The 2 are My Neighbor Totoro, which is Hayao Miyazaki's children's movie, and I've watched both versions. My dad was able to get the English dub and the Japanese dub, and I probably watched the Japanese dub way more often as a kid than the English version. Yeah, as a kid, I didn't care to the English version. I was watching the Japanese version. And same thing with Lupin the Third, and which one specifically is The Castle of Cagliostro. For those of you who have not seen the past podcast episode, I mentioned that The Castle of Cagliostro is actually Hayao Miyazaki's first big movie that he's did in the past. And this movie came out in the late 70s, and he became I think this movie is what got him started becoming an anime filmmaker. And so The Castle of Cagliostro and My Neighbor Totoro, both Hayao Miyazaki, those two have been a huge influence. I love My Neighbor Totoro and I love The Castle of Cagliostro. And as a kid, I didn't really know about Lupin the Third much, except that movie was the whole reason I became an anime fan, and that was the reason it got me started. Now, unfortunately for other shows like the Guyver, the original Guyver anime series, I wasn't old enough, obviously, because I was too violent and grisly. I was able to get like just a snippet while my dad was trying to fast forward of Lupin the Third or Totoro, and just seeing just a snippet, just a snip of the Guyver, and I wish I had a chance to watch him, but it was in Japanese, and me and Dad had to get rid of a whole bunch of video cassette tapes because we were moving out of the house to an apartment, and which means we had to dump out almost a quarter or maybe half of our personal belongings straight to the garbage because we're moving into the apartment, and the apartment is like small space. So we were really bummed to get rid of all that stuff, but it was time to move on. And it was a shame losing those videotapes too, because that would have been a nice collection. Now, as time goes by, I have watched a few anime titles, but not as much until one year. Back in 2001, Cartoon Network came out with Adult Swim. Adult Swim is what got started. I remember very young at my age, and I was about, I don't think I haven't turned 10 just yet. And as I was watching this Adult Swim program, there were so many shows that I've never heard of before, and a lot of them are like original shows. And I was just my mind was so mesmerized, and my eyes were just so drawn of all the cartoon shows airing on Adult Swim. And I couldn't believe this was on Cartoon Network program, that we're finally get to have in a adult program so that late night viewers can watch it. I was so blown away. I can't remember too many shows off the top of my head, but I think there's C Lab 2021, Hunger Team, or Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and was it Harvey Birdman or something like that? And the Venture Brothers. Robot Chicken was also a really big show on Adult Swim, and I've watched that a lot as of my young age too. Definitely not for kids, but watching late night cartoon shows on Saturday nights, I would always try to tune in to watch Robot Chicken all the way. But then Saturday nights was doing it differently. On Saturday nights, they would focus on anime shows. And anime shows is what got me to become a bigger anime fan. My anime fanboy has gone a big boom in my life. Without Adult Swim, I wouldn't be watching shows such as, Furikuri, Inuyasha, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, Full Metal Alchemist, Lupin the Third from the 70s, which I had no idea how big Lupin the Third is at that time. I have never realized how old Lupin the Third is until I watched that. And also, which I'll never forget, Cowboy Bebop. And for what I've read on the internet, that Cowboy Bebop is the first anime show to air on Adult Swim. The first. And Cowboy Bebop, when that show first aired, the moment of the intro opening scene first popped up, and it's loud, jazzy feel to it, and then begins the animation opening. I watched the first episode, and already I just sat down and I was smiling. As of this moment, I found another anime show that is going to forever change my life. And boy, did it. My anime fanboy has grown big. So Adult Swim has changed my life, and especially Fooly Cooly, which is a really over the top animation of Japanese anime I've ever watched, and it only made 6 episodes. Just by watching that, really caught my attention, and I loved it all the way through. So without Adult Swim, I wouldn't be here discussing with this guys. Adult Swim has been a huge influence. So Adult Swim, if you're listening to this, thank you so freaking much of making this happen. You have made my fanboy grown to become a much bigger fan more than anything. And today, in this day of age, I'm currently watching Rick and Morty, and I just finished up the new season, and I'm waiting and waiting for a brand new season, which won't be until like either later this year or next year, either the two. So thank you, Adult Swim, for inspiring my childhood. So, about, let's say, 2005, I had a friend of mine, I think it used to be like a mom and, my mom and my stepdad had a friend, and his name is Jeff. Now, Jeff has been an anime fan for a long, long time, and every once in a while I would stop by, and I would walk out of my house. It's about like a 2-minute walk. I would knock on a door. I'd say hi to Jeff and his wife Kelly, and I would always hang out for the next like 30 minutes or so. And then before that, my mom and my stepdad would stop by as well, and we would just hang out, getting caught up. And I was so eye drawn on some of the anime titles he owns, and some of them I started watching. Like some of them, let's see, he owned a couple of DVD discs of Fullmetal Alchemist, and they're like separate cases. At that time, you had to buy one disc, and it cost you about $25 for 4 to 5 episodes, which sucks at the time, but during that time, that's what we get. So it was before video streaming service grew, so we had to deal with DVDs and borrow a friend's house to borrow it at that time. So there was Fullmetal Alchemist. If I can remember off the top of my head, some of the anime shows I started watching from his collection is Veritable Geo. Veritable Geo is kind of like a... it wasn't as popular as like every like Street Fighter or Tekken or anything like that, or even Fatal Fury. It wasn't even that big of a popular at the time. But Veritable Geo was up there, and there are only about 3 episodes. But overall, really good. It was a really good show. Then I borrowed a couple discs of Fullmetal Alchemist, and sadly I wasn't able to finish the whole thing. I just never really got around to it. And then there's Nuku Nuku. That anime show has been another anime show that I became a fan as well. And I didn't care too much of the TV show or the newer generation of Cat Nuku Nuku, but the original OVA, which means original video animation, OVA, that particular one, I loved more than anything. The animation style is perfect. It's for teens to watch, and it was funny. It was over the top funny, and it was definitely a 90s anime show as well. And then there's a Dirty Pair. Dirty Pair was hugely popular in the 80s, and boy, Jeff owns a collection. He's actually a huge fan of Dirty Pair series from the original TV show from the 80s. And unfortunately, I've only watched the new generation of Dirty Pair. It's called Dirty Pair Flash, and I do have that in my collection as well. I own the complete set. And for the original TV show, the only collection I was able to get a hold of was the OVA collection, which was after the TV show, and the movie collections, which made about, 3, 4 movie titles of Dirty Pair. And I've only watched the one. I have not gone around watching the others because I've just been busy of other anime shows. And then another anime show I grew up watching is Burn Up. Now, Burn Up is the only one I've watched was called Burn Up W, which is a standalone miniseries. And then I think the show got so popular, they brought it back and make it as a TV show. And it produced about was like 12 to 15 episodes. That the TV show, I was like, wow, okay, it's a funny show, but man, I was not expecting to be this good. I really like it. And keep in mind, this was 2005. 2005. I wasn't able to get a hold of the Burn Up series for a long, long time. I was able to get a hold of the Burn Up W on DVD, which is like 2010 or 11. I was able to finally get it. And then last year, I finally got a hold of the TV series of Burn Up, and I'm so happy that I finally got it. So now it's in my collection as well. I'm so relieved that I've waited over 10 to 15 years to finally get a hold of it, and I'm glad I did. Money well spent. Oh, and Jeff also introduced me to this whole new anime movie called Appleseed. At that time, Appleseed was a hugely popular, and he got a hold of the Japanese copy that was only released in Japan at the time of Appleseed, and it was a whole new CGI animation. I was only allowed to watch the action sequence. I didn't watch the whole thing until I went to the store and I bought the movie myself as a birthday gift. So when I watched it the first time, I just sit there and my eyes were just glowing of happiness of how amazing this opening scene of Appleseed is. I was so blown away. I'm trying to remember what else that Jeff introduced me. I'm pretty certain there was more, but as I was becoming an anime fan, I started to collecting more stuff, and I also started to reading this manga series called Hayuriyoshi, which is a comedy romance about a man and a woman who hasn't seen each other in their childhood, and it got reunited and become a romantic story. Very unusual for me to mention this anime topic, but this was the anime, or I should say, this was the manga book story that I decided to go ahead and give it a try, and so I did. I decided to give it a try, and let's see what happens. And so when I first read the book, I was really interested, and then I continued from volume 2 all the way to volume 5, then all the way to volume 10, and then in conclusion of all the way to final book, which was number 17. And I could not believe I bought it all the way through there. Oh, and also during that time, my dad used to work at Borders Bookstore. Now, Borders Bookstore, it's a lot like Barnes & Noble, those types of bookstores. But, man, back in the day when we had Borders Bookstore, oh, man, my dad was so happy to work there, just getting a bunch of, like, free books, and he was able to get, like, a promo DVD disc on certain anime titles, and he was able to get an action figure of a statue of Superman. They were promoting Superman Returns, which was huge at the time. And boy, it was amazing. Great, great times. The weird thing is, I would have bought Battle Royale manga book series, but my focus was towards Hayuriyoshi. For some odd reason, I was just so into that story. I think the story really, somehow it just kind of inspired me in some way, or it's just somehow I feel related to the impact of that story in some way. Or it could happen sometime in the future. Who knows? And, oh yes, and I was also buying magazines that involves anime as well. There was a magazine called New Type magazines. Now, New Type was mostly about promoting a lot of stuff in Japan. A lot of what's going on in Japan and what's going on in the new anime shows and what's new on DVDs coming out and what's new on this and what's the a brand new Full Metal Alchemist artwork designs, and those were really cool at the time. Unfortunately, it was only around until like 2002 until 2008. And unfortunately, there was an anime company that bought New Type magazine for American viewers, and unfortunately, they stopped about 2008 because it had something to do with a company called ADV Films went out of business because, well, again, 2008, 2009 was a really rough time for everybody. Losing the rights for the magazine really crushed me because I was just getting started on collecting those magazines, and I only own about like five. I only own about five magazines. But interesting enough, in Japan, they're still producing New Type magazines, and I wish I can get my hands on those, but they're all in Japanese. You can't get them. They can't import in America anymore because we don't have the rights anymore. That breaks my heart because I love those magazines. They're amazing to look at. And then about during high school, I started watching some more anime shows. That's how I started getting like DVD rentals on Netflix and getting like shows like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Hyper Police, this weird one called Jungle D Ikofu, something like that. And that was a weird one. I don't want to talk about that. And I just been trying to keeping my sharp eye to a number of anime shows that I wanted to watch straight to mail DVD and watch it home. And I would watch it 2 discs a week. And as soon as I finished, I put it in the mailbox and wait for the next one to come in. So it'd be like every Tuesday through Saturday. Every Tuesdays and Saturdays, I would start watching brand new anime titles on DVD. During that time, we had this Netflix was beginning to starting their early experiment of streaming service, and I started like watching some like movies and TV shows, and they even got a hold of a couple of anime titles. One of them really caught my eye, and that is Street Fighter II: The Animated Movie. Now, again, for those of you who haven't listened to my previous podcast episodes, I mentioned that Street Fighter II: The Animated Movie is my number one favorite anime movie of all time, even more than Castle of Cagliostro. Castle of Cagliostro will always be my personal favorite, but right now, Street Fighter II: Animated Movie is what got me inspired of mixing anime into the video game world, and I was so eye-drawn of the idea of the story, and I'm thinking like, oh, this will be such an amazing live-action version of this. I think right about like high school, actually just before high school, I was watching this really old school cult classic anime, which was Bubblegum Crisis, and that was the first time I've really kind of gone deep on some of the anime titles. And Bubblegum Crisis was like, wow, that is an amazing show. I was so blown away of how much hand-drawn, frame by frame, that they went deep on this. Wow. And it's very musical of it, too. I was really inspired. It was so good. It was such a good show. And then, sadly, right about after like 2011 or 12, Borders Bookstore went out of business, so I was no longer to get any more manga books. My dad was focusing on trying to get a new job, and I stopped at the store called I Like Comics. That's the name of the store, I Like Comics. And I just been collecting a bunch of DC comics. Because right about 2011, 2012, that was when they started to reboot the entire DC comic superheroes. And I started getting my hands on a lot of the titles, and especially Batman. I was really drawn into the new version of Batman with Scott Snyder becoming a very well-known writer at the time. And you got Greg Capullo drawing Batman, which, for those who don't know, Greg Capullo's been working a lot with Todd McFarlane in the past. And the way he designs it, I'm just like, wow, this is such a good Batman story. I fell in love with it all the way through. So I kind of stopped for anime for a little bit and focusing on DC Comics and started collecting those. And then later on, I collected a bunch of Top Cow comics, such as I collected like the Witchblade comics. I've collected the Lara Croft Tomb Raider comics, and Mark Silvestri's The Darkness, and just beginning a whole bunch of those. Even Michael Turner's Fathom, and I just been busy on collecting those because I was so fascinated with it, and I was so eager to collect as many Michael Turner's art covers as much as possible because I'm a huge fan of Michael Turner. And so every once in a while I would buy a couple of animes here and there, but not as much. But nowadays I'm really trying to going back on some of the animes, and I've binge watched so many anime shows for the past few months right after I lost my job. So let's just say I'm really happy that I finally got caught up on some of the big major anime shows. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, that just shows you how much I became an anime fan, and I was wanting to, or the reason I want to tell you guys is because, with all the negativity that's been happening, anime has been a huge, huge influence. It really did. Just want to let you guys know that there will be somebody out there that wants to take action and to ban of any anime shows and manga books, and especially Australia is banning about a good handful of manga books, possibly. It's really heartbreaking, and feel free to search it up online and Google it, and when you can. I just watched it on some YouTuber talking about the news about Australia banning manga books, and it's heartbreaking. But I won't go too deep with it. But basically, for people like that, would take it one step too far, banning your favorite manga book. It's heartbreaking. It really is. It really, really is heartbreaking. And they're doing this thing which I really hate is they're judging the book by its cover. Just letting you guys know, I do not respect that at all. I do not like it. I do not like it when people judge the book by its cover. I really, really don't like it when people do that. I really, really don't. Okay, guys. Now, before we put the show to a close, I didn't really have the time to do any thoughts or doing anime reviews or movies or books or anything like that. I barely got around reading books because I'm just too lazy to read. Now, what you're about to hear is an anime review that I'm going to share with you guys. And this is actually an anime review that I recorded from months ago, since like November or December. And I was reviewing a movie called A Silent Voice. And so this recording was back in November, and unfortunately the dialogue, what you're about to hear, is sounded really off. So if you hear that kind of that really ruffle sound like this, that means I've messed up the microphone sound and it's not cranked up all the way high that's supposed to be. So what you're about to hear, I do apologize, the muffling sound. It was all I can do, and I didn't really know how to set things up. I was still pretty new at it. You're going to hear me reviewing this anime movie, and you're going to be hearing talking about my depression a little bit, but I'm not ready to share everything of my depression story because some of it is going to be heavily edited because I realized I kept missing the jump of the story, so I kept going off track of the main story because I was going through so much in my mind, and I realized when I was re-listening to my recording, I didn't feel proud how it turned out. So unfortunately, it's going to be cut out. But I will try it again later this year. But I just figured, well, it's not really a good time to share it with you guys. So that'll be postponed of my depression. So, but don't worry, I will get around to it eventually. But I do apologize. So without further ado, check out this anime review, A Silent Voice. Please enjoy.
When I first saw that, I was really surprised of how some of the story elements gave me flashbacks of my past, of me being bullied every day, and by watching that movie, just suddenly clicked, and there were some things going like, oh man, that actually happened to me in my personal life, and so it's a story about a young teenager almost intended to commit suicide, then shows a flashback in elementary school named Shoya, a young boy named Shoya Ishida. Shoya Ishida, I think that's his name. So like in his school times in his elementary, he's having the time of his life, spend time with his friends, doing crazy, stupid stuff. Then one day, a new student came along named Shoko Nishimina, or so Shoko. Um, she was informing the class she's deaf, and she tries to make friends, but instead Shoya and his friends are felt annoyed and start to bully her. And so watching Shoya being bullied to other kids, or seeing Shoya that's being bullied to other kids because she's deaf, which I felt very relatable to what she's going through, because that's pretty much what I had to go through in my school years in elementary. Because I get bullied almost every day because I was born different. And Shoya was born being deaf, and I was born having a learning disability that doesn't understand, that my brain just does not understand like everyone else. And so for Shoya and I, we have something in common. And after that, the principal heard about what happened. There was this one day the bullying got too far and Shoya got injured. And so the principal went into the class. I think Shoya, I think I might have pronounced some of the names differently, so I apologize. Um, I felt relatable to Shoko. I felt relatable to Shoko, so I apologize for messing up the names. Um, but anyways, um, after what happened to Shoko, that Shoko got injured because of Shoya went too far. And so when the principal heard about that, went in to investigate, okay, who is the person that's been bullied Shoka or no, Shoko the most? And so all the class were pointing at Shoya that he's to blame. And so now Shoya is feeling the same way as Shoko is treated. And things get pretty bad. And so now time timeline flashes by and it's now in high school. And Shoko moved to a different school. Shoya is now uh, is rejecting social conversations and kind of blocks people faces of those around him. So just kind of imagining blocking their face and not seeing them and unable to look them in the eye. So he's just completely social. What's the word? Anti-social. I think that's I think that's the term. And in time, Shoya wanted uh, a chance to apologize to Joko, and and he was able to learn sign language and to be able to have a second chance, of possibly being friends. And that right there is another relatable feeling, believing second chances. And so when I saw that, that hit me because that really hit me in my personal life. I would say if you're gonna go watch A Silent Voice, please do. It is the most beautiful story, very emotional, and it's a message to people who also been bullied, going through depression, or having thoughts of suicidal. This movie is relatable in every way. For my thoughts and opinions, the movie focuses about bullies and victims into an anime format. It has a beautiful artwork in every frame. The animation in that one is beautifully done, and I think they did a fantastic job of making it. And, oh yeah, the story is also 2 hours long, which I was really surprised. It is surprisingly 2 hours long, and it's not really slow or boring. I was concerned of it would slow down in some scenes, but not really. I didn't really see any way of the movie being slow or boring. The story was very motivated, and it was not stopping at any point of the story. It just kept me fascinated of the characters. The characters were very relatable to my childhood, especially Joko, um, born being deaf, and I'm born having a learning disability, and because we're just born different. But to be honest, sometimes being different is a gift. You know, you accept it. Being different is a gift. In the story, it can be dark sometimes to some viewers, but this anime is a message, and that message has a happy ending. And right off the bat, I give it a 9 out of 10 because of how beautifully it is. A special shout out and saying thank you to an anime company called Kyoto Animation, to the animators that made this movie happen, and how much this movie was very relatable to my childhood of me being bullied and me going through depression, because I feel the same way as Joko did. And I really wanted to say thanks to Kyoto Animation. You really did a beautiful job making this movie happen.
Well, everyone, that's all for the show. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast episode, and I will be reviewing more anime shows later on, and possibly movies as well. Now, before I go, I wanted to share a quote with you guys. Since I was talking about Steve Blum, I found this quote known as that Steve Blum playing as television host as Tom from Toonami, and I want to give a shout out to Steve Blum. If you're listening to this right now, I just wanted to know I'm sharing this quote, not stealing. So I hope this is okay for me to share this, to spread word out, especially in this day of age. I found it on YouTube that was posted. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to try doing my take as Tom with my low, deep voice. So just like you. So I'm going to try my best and share this with you guys, and I hope you're okay with this. So here's a quote. So here's the deal. Life doesn't always want to be your friend. Sometimes it'll feel like life wants to hurt you. But you can't just hide, because nobody likes a quitter. You gotta take chances. I never said it was going to be fun or easy. Whether you're totally ready when you least expected doesn't matter. Life will punch you right in the face. And you can lie there for a second. Cry a little if you want to. But get back on your feet. 'Cause it's the getting back up that counts. That's what shows you've got heart. That's what helps keep you going. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. And know we'll be right there with you. And that is a quote of the voice Steve Blum as Tom from Toonami. So I hope that really inspires you, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys, because that quote is going to keep me active and help keep me going as well. So thank you, Steve, for this quote. And so that is the end of our show. I going to be doing lots of heavy editing at this point, filling in the anime review and this and that. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much listening to my podcast, and be sure to tune in to my next episode later on, and I will do my best to try to keep going while I'm still unemployed. All right. So anyways, thank you for listening, guys. My name is Zach Probst, and this is Zap Chat. Thank you for listening. Good night.